Malcolm Farber, there's just a hint of arrogance about the approach from Sydney on this, that there's a conference, so obviously... Though I think if they applied for the E20, it might explain why they didn't get it.
I don't know why we're scrapping. Sydney could have the E20 and Brisbane could have the G20. Look, there is a hint of sour grapes, roughly the size of the Harbour Bridge. Well, and also it's very interesting, it seems to be from that presentation that there was a codicil on the state of origin that whoever won it gets the G20. G20s have not always been held in capitals. There was one in Seattle, I think I'm right in thinking. One in
Philadelphia.
Ontario, not Montreal.
Pittsburgh, yeah.
Pittsburgh. I mean, it's quite normal for...
Los Cabos?
Well, we all... it's quite common for that to happen. But more interesting... And Queensland would do a very good job. There are two political elements here. One is Julia Gillard will be seen to be working closely with Campbell Newman. For the first time ever since Mr Newman was elected Premier of Queensland.
But hang on, we're talking 2014.
I know, but there's a lead-up to it, and there's 370 million smackaroos of Commonwealth money to go into this project. So
Campbell Newman may still be Premier in 2045, of course.
You can be sure that Premier Newman and Prime Minister Gillard will be working closely on this. That could have some positives. But, I mean, truly, in a state where Labor's face has been wiped out. The second thing is the argument about Sydney's second airport. Barry O'Farrell, the New South Wales Premier, and his colleagues are griping that Sydney wasn't selected. The Prime Minister said, well, one of the factors was Brisbane got an airport that works, and Barry O'Farrell won't even get engaged in looking for a site for a second airport, let alone spending a whole lot more money improving the current one. So there are two issues that at least have been brought up by this.
Phil, do they really care in Sydney, or is it just the politicians?
I think the politicians care of the loss of face. I think if you ask the residents who still remember APEC and the businesses and so forth, who remember the Ring of Steel and all the nonsense with the motorcades and so forth, probably aren't crying about it too much. But definitely there's a loss of face there for Sydney as the country's premier city, and you've basically been told your facilities aren't good enough. I mean, the convention centre's going to be out of action. It's either going to be demolished or refurbished. And I think the Minister Hazard said, well, we can use the Opera House and the MCA and so forth. But no, it's a loss of face. But yeah, I think on the ground there's probably not a lot of gnashing of teeth.
Now, Karen, this was the big announcement, though, during Julia Gillard's 5-day trip in Queensland. It's you can understand why she did it, but that's a long time to spend in one single state, and it was a classic sort of a campaign, wasn't it? Like she met with the local councillors, certainly the mayors in all of these towns. She did a lot of local media,
selected business leaders as well. But,
yeah, it's hard to tell how this will resonate, but at that level, you'd think she'd get a bit of a bang for her buck.
And it did force Campbell Newman to say nice things about Julia Gillard, which doesn't come easily to him, and he hasn't done much of late. So he did actually say, oh, you know, we've had good negotiations on this, we can work well together on this. There are things that we differ on, and he talked about the mining and carbon taxes, but he did say, and he kind of laughed and said, but even on those things, she's been fairly good-humoured about it. So it actually looked like a better dynamic for her on a personal level, which won't hurt her in Queensland. But they're in diabolical trouble in Queensland. All the polls are suggesting they're going to be wiped out in Queensland. And I don't know that spending a week up there, short of buying the house that she was advised to do earlier in the year, I'm not sure that how much spending a week up there is going to help her.
Yeah, but I think working in the local media, like the former Senator John Black said that just stay out of Queensland. That's probably your best approach. But what a defeatist attitude that would be. You've got to get in there and try and fight.
She did a good interview on Rocky on radio up there, quite personal. She got a couple of left field questions about, you know, what do you do at night at the lodge, and you know, what do you like to eat, and it was all very down home. I like my steak and I like my roast lamb and that sort of thing. But she was being herself a bit more, and that probably doesn't hurt her, given how she's had all those criticisms of being so wooden and removed.
It's just becoming difficult for her to go anywhere at the moment. We had in the last week, we had the Northern Territory Labor leader, the Western Australian Labor leader, and even Daniel Andrews sort of politely suggest, you know, no need to come here during my respective state campaigns. I mean, she's become a bit like Typhoid Mary, the Prime Minister, you know, and it's I think she's got no option but actually belly up, front up and take it on. I don't know whether giving the G20 to Brisbane's going to give them an extra vote, but they've got nothing to lose, absolutely nothing to lose.